We are recording. Good morning, Toastmasters. You are here for the secretary training and treasurer training. It is
you know what? I'm on the wrong one though. I was supposed to have sergeant at arms. That's the link I clicked, but it took me here.
Let me hit pause.
All right, perfect.
Okay. Phil has been a Toastmaster since 2001, joining the oldest club in Las Vegas, Windjammers. He is also a member of Ahead of the Curve Toastmasters. He has enjoyed all the hidden jewels in Toastmasters: evaluation, table topics, and leadership opportunities. Phil considers Toastmaster the greatest practice environment out there for communication and leadership. Disaster still gets applause. Phil has served over 30 individual terms as club treasurer and 5 years of district leadership, 4 as district treasurer, finance manager, and 1 is administration manager. Phil also was the district conference chair when the sitting International Toastmaster Board president attended our conference in Las Vegas. Phil is a CPA of almost 30 years, specializing in nonprofit auditing and taxation. A couple of weeks ago, at the 11th hour, Phil snuck in and achieved his Distinguished Toastmaster Award. Please help me welcome Distinguished Toastmaster Phil Bateman.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Carol. I'm glad to have us here. It looks like we got a couple more people that are coming on. I'll wait just a second. Laura, if you're on, if you can rename yourself, your first and last name, and the club that you are representing or clubs, that'll help us get the credit that you need or that we need for this training this morning. And Craig, if you can rename yourself with your club name also, that would be great.
Okay, I'll try here. I'm not sure.
You just go into rename and then just type the name of your club right after your last name.
Okay, let me see.
And then
Craig, what club is it?
For, Cheers.
Okay, I'll take care of that for you.
Okay, yeah. Just.
Since we're a small group too, you can remain unmuted, and if you've got questions or comments as we go through, please pipe in. We're going to be hitting the secretary responsibilities for the first part, and then we're going to move into the treasurer responsibilities.
Okay.
Secretary, we're going to go over the roles, responsibilities, and resources, the big 3 R's today. And our objective today is to identify your role, fulfill your responsibilities, and know what resources you have out there. Whether you're a first-time secretary, treasurer, or an experienced one, having those resources is key. With any office or position in Toastmasters, there are responsibilities and roles that happen during the meeting, some that happen outside of the meeting, and then some that remain with the executive committee. And we're going to hit on all 3 of those today. So the club meeting, before the club meeting, we're going to talk about during the meeting and at the end also. Biggest thing with the secretary is minutes. And minutes is something that scares a lot of people. It's kind of like the word budget. Minutes is a critical piece to your club's success. And I've seen the gamut with minutes. I've seen everything from no minutes to very extensive minutes. And as the secretary, you can tailor how you want to do the minutes to what works for you and your club. The key is keeping track of every meeting, who's doing what roles, what speeches are happening, so that we have a history of our club. I've had several experiences where members, back when we were doing paper books, speech books would lose their book or misplace something, and trying to recreate what speeches they had done. We went back to those minutes and we were able to see that, hey, I spoke on April 10th, I spoke on April 24th, and able to repiece all of that together. So it is critical information for the history of your club. You can use a pre-printed form. You can use the agenda for the meeting. You can just use a piece of paper or type it in Word. However you choose to do your minutes, the whole key is just making sure you get the information down as to what happened at that meeting. Any actions of the president, if you guys make board resolutions or to buy supplies or use money for something, or to restructure your club, you want to have those noted down also. And then also you update the club officer list. As an officer, you're able to go into the Toastmaster International website under leadership and club, and one of the options within there is updating your club officer list. And that's critical, not only for your club, but for the area leaders and the division leaders and the district leaders, so they know who is doing what role. Circulated an attendance sheet. In most cases, I found it practical. You have a list of all the members and you mark through the members that are in attendance. It helps know who was there, who wasn't there. And when you're having an executive meeting, you can see what members may be falling off the map that may need a little bit of extra help. So attendance, again, can be part of your minutes and is part of your responsibility for a meeting. Reading the previous minutes. I don't think I've ever had a club where we've actually read the minutes. In most cases, what I've seen that works really well is the secretary will take the minutes for the meeting. They'll either type them up or they'll scan them in. And over the next few days, they will email that out to the membership. And I think that's very beneficial. It helps fix any problems or miscommunications with the minutes. And B, if you happen not to be able to attend that meeting, it still keeps you involved in the club. And I've seen in some cases, it motivates members to come back. So I always like that weekly email, weekly way of getting the minutes out there to the members that they can read at their convenience. It gets them correct and it keeps everyone involved as to what's going on in the meeting, in the club, I should say. Let's see. Maintaining an accurate club roster. And one of the nice things in Toastmaster International website under leadership and club, one of the options in there is your roster. You're able to click on that and export it. You can export it PDF, you can export it Excel and tailor it the way you want. That's the starting part for your roster. Since only officers have the ability to get into these items, you want to distribute that to your club on a somewhat regular basis, so Toastmaster knows how to get a hold of the members of the club for upcoming meetings. If there's inaccurate information within that Toastmaster roster, you want to get with the individual member. They need to go in via their profile and fix that information. That's not something I believe you can do as an officer. They need to go in there and adjust their phone number or their email or of the other information in there. But again, the roster is kind of how we all connect throughout our club, and it's important that all members, and especially new members, have that information. Submit club officer list, and that should have already, for the semi-annual clubs, that would have taken place in the month of June. And for annual and semi-annual members, that'll now come up again in December when you have elections. That needs to be done by the end of the year. Any correspondence that may come in, and then just keeping the records. And most clubs I know are keeping their records electronically now. It's a lot easier than keeping boxes of paper. So whether they're scanned in or whatnot, A lot of times they're on a flash drive now. I think it's important that there be other copies of that in case the flash drive goes missing. Maybe somebody has it on their desktop, the president has it over here, and then you've got the main flash drive that you keep the information on. But it's important to keep this information about the history of your club. And then also attending club executive committee meetings. Executive committee meetings are extremely important, I believe, for a club. And whether you choose to meet monthly or every other month, it's critical that you do have these. If your club is not having executive meetings, I would talk with your president and encourage them to instigate those. It helps keep the club on track, helps you figure out where you're going with the Distinguished Club program, and helps identify if there's any problems that need to be addressed. You can vote at international business meetings. You're also one of the facilitator members in Base Camp. You, the Vice President of Education, and I believe the President is. When I was secretary last, we weren't in Pathways, so I was not involved with Base Camp at all. But I do know that the secretary is one of the key people in that, with getting awards in and credit for various items. Arranging for a replacement. And when we hopefully get back to in-person meetings and you're going to meetings and you're taking the minutes, if you happen not to be there on a particular day, it's important that you find a replacement so we don't have a hole in our records because you weren't there for that particular day. You can find a prior secretary or another experienced Toastmaster that can help with that. I've also found that if you are secretary and also Toastmaster for the day, that can be a very full plate. If you're Toastmaster that particular day, find a replacement that can help you with the minutes, because you've got a lot going on being Toastmaster for the day, and trying to keep up with the minutes and who's doing what can be a challenge. So utilize the other members of your club, and most people are more than willing to jump in. And then prepare a successor, and that can be one of these replacement people that are helping you out, is preparing them to take over the role when you are done with it. The executive committee, we talked about that. Again, you'll have a separate set of minutes for the executive committee. That's where the 7 officers will meet on somewhat of a regular basis and go over the items of the club. You'd note any amendments and then keep track of what happens during the meeting. How you will fulfill this responsibility, when each action will be completed, who is available to help, and what materials you can use. There are so many resources out there in Toastmasters. If you're new to Toastmasters or new to being an officer, don't feel like you're out there on the island and you've got to figure it out. There are a tremendous amount of experienced Toastmasters, likely in your club or in other clubs, or your area director, that can definitely assist you on things. And within Toastmasters, I've always seen a great willingness to help. People want to help others. It's a learning experience for all of us. So don't feel like you're out there on an island all by yourself. So we're fulfilling our responsibility with officer training today. That's great. There are materials on the Toastmaster International website, and also the District 115 website that can help also. There are officer training manuals out there, and I encourage you to pull that up and read through the various sections in there, and that kind of gives you a better idea and timetable as to when things need to happen. You hopefully got your information from the prior secretary. If you have not received the records from the prior secretary, it's important that you get them in your possession so they don't go missing. And then just make sure your officer list is up to date. That is really the gist with the secretary. I know I went over it pretty quickly, but hopefully hit on some of the main parts. The minutes obviously are critical. And then just making sure that you are keeping an accurate roster and getting that out to your membership so that they can reach members of their club if they're a Toastmaster or an evaluator or another position. Before we move into treasurer, are there any questions or comments or good best practices that you've seen in being a secretary?
Yeah, this is Susan. I just have a question about getting the records from the prior secretary. We're having Zoom meetings, so we aren't meeting in person.
Okay.
So is that something I need to still arrange with the prior secretary to meet with that person and get those records right away? Or is that something that can be done maybe a month or two later when we have in-person meetings?
Yeah, it could wait. I would
Okay.
suggest trying to get it
Okay.
sooner versus later in case somebody moves out of town or
Okay.
whatnot. You just want to make sure that those records remain whole and that they are there. So whatever I know logistics right now are kind of a nightmare, but
Right.
if you can arrange to get them sooner versus later, great. If you need to wait until we're meeting in person again, you
Okay.
know, that's still an option.
Yeah, the person who was secretary, I think he's out of state. He hasn't been attending the last few weeks, and I think they said he was out of state
Okay.
for a while. So I think I'll have to wait on that, but
Yeah, just
Yeah.
try to work because the longer the time gets
Okay.
out, it becomes harder and harder to track people
oh,
down.
okay, I'll find out. Maybe he turned them over to another officer. So
Yeah.
I'll check into that.
Okay, excellent.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions before we move on to treasurer?
May I interrupt real quick?
Go right ahead, Carol.
Laura, we need a last name and a club, please. If you want to tell us what that is so that we can get you logged in, that would be great.
And I'm going to take a second and flip out of the secretary slides and go over to the treasurer slides.
Okay, so if we're just the secretary, can we then leave the meeting, or should we view this training also?
Carol, you're on mute. Okay.
All knowledge is power, as my dad says, but
Okay.
if you don't want to listen to treasurer, it's not required.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I have some other things I need to do.
Okay.
Thank you for the training.
Absolutely. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.
Okay, the treasurer position. Another critical member of the officer team. Kind of one of the unsung heroes in leadership, but it is an extremely important position. And if it goes awry, horrible things can happen at times. So it is definitely an important position. We're going to talk today about identifying your role, fulfilling your responsibilities, and then letting you know the resources that are out there to help you in being the treasurer. And again, like with any officer position, you have duties and functions within the club meeting, you have some outside of the club meeting, and then you have some within the executive committee, which are the top 7 officers in your club.
Disinfecting wipes together can be used on.
So the club meeting, you've got responsibilities before and during the meeting. Preparing a financial report, and that kind of scares a lot of people, I think, because they think it's big and complicated. And it really is not. It can be as simple as how much money is in our club bank account and how many members do we have that are paid for our club. And that can be a simple report. I recommend giving that report to your club at least on a monthly basis so that all the members know how much we have in our club funds and what our membership is and how many have paid. It can be encountered too as we start going through another dues collection cycle in the next few months. of reminding members about upcoming dues, collecting membership dues. So membership dues, it gets, a lot of people don't understand how the dues are calculated. Simply, to be a Toastmaster, it is $7.50 per month for international dues. It is billed semi-annually with due dates on March 31st and September 30th. So dues, $7.50 times 6 months is $45. So if you're an existing Toastmaster, $45 every 6 months is your international dues. The club dues are the amounts of money that we get to keep as an internal club that we can use for supplies and for other items that we need to run our meeting. Club dues could be $1 a month. They could be $2 a month. They vary per club. So you would want to make sure that you know how much club dues per month are for your club are. And essentially, and this is where it gets complicated. So let's say we have a member that wants to join in the month of July, and we know what our international dues are. They're $7.50. We know what our club dues. We'll just say $1 a month. You count from the current month till the next due date. So we would count July, August, September, 3 months. So 3 months of $7.50 and 3 months of $3, which comes up to 26 something. So, but that's essentially how you calculate the dues for new members that are coming in, is you count the current month and count the number of months until the next due date. That gives you your number of months. It's always $7.50 a month for the international dues. Find out what your club dues. That's essentially the dues part. In addition, if they are a brand new member to Toastmasters, they pay a one-time $20 fee. So if they've never been a Toastmaster at any other time, you would add $20 to that. That is only paid one time at the very beginning. Even if they were a Toastmaster 8 years ago in New York, they do not need to pay that. They are considered a reinstated member. So the $20 only comes up if they're brand new. That essentially is, and the more people in your club that you can enlighten with how dues are collected is very helpful, because there may be meetings that you are not at as treasurer, and or there may be new members that are at in live meeting where the vice president of membership is working through an application with somebody, and if they can understand how the dues work, it just helps things so much better. So I encourage you to share this information with your other officer team members that may be helping with new members. Prepare a budget. And really, a budget, again, is kind of a scary word for a lot of people, but it can be very simple. Essentially, your budget, you're going to budget on a 6-month cycle, because that's how we collect dues. You're only going to budget money coming in for club dues. So if you have 20 members and your club dues are $1 a month, $1 times 6 months is $6 times 20 members would be $120 you have in club funds for this 6-month period. That's the revenue piece. The expense piece is figure out where your club spends their money. And it may take going backward a little bit to try to figure out what do we spend our funds on. Most of the money in the clubs that I've experienced, it goes to supplies for the meeting, ribbons, badges, certificates. There may be awards that we give out at certain points. It's going to go to a lot of different supplies. There may be other things. We used to charge for officer training. That's no longer the case. So we're not paying for that anymore. look back through your bank statements, look back through the records, or talk to the prior treasurer, and they can give you an idea on where your club dues need to go. And that's simply the budget. And just like I said, try to keep it in a 6-month cycle, because that's the way that we collect dues within the club. Bank signature cards, and this is extremely important. If you've had changes in the treasurer or the president role in the last term, you want to make sure that you go to the bank and you update the signature card. Too many clubs forget about this, and then we get years down the road and the signature card's not updated and none of those people are around anymore, and it becomes a lot harder to update the signature card. When you update a signature card, a lot of the times somebody that's already on there needs to go with the new people, along with some minutes saying that these people were elected to an office or position. And some banks are it's as simple as that. Some it takes a little bit more effort, but in a lot of the cases, you need to have somebody that's on the signature card currently go so that the others can be added. So members move out of town, members vanish at times. So you want to just make sure that that gets updated and keeps currently. Collecting and paying dues, we've talked about that a little bit. Our next cycle for dues is going to come up at the end of September. I usually start announcing dues renewals about 45 days before the due date. That gives people ample warning about how to either, I need to mail a check to the treasurer, or if we've got Zelle, we can use that, or some use PayPal. There's a lot of different options out there. Some will pay in cash. But you start warning the members, and there's a nice little application within Free Toast Host under treasurer functions that you can actually, it's actually drafted you a dues notice and or invoice that you can email out to members. It's already pre-done. You just fill in the parameters of your club and it can be emailed out there. So I've started using that over the last few years, and it's a great tool to use for reminding members about dues. Submitting new member applications. And usually, other members in the club may be collecting and accumulating these applications, but ultimately it needs to end up with the treasurer and the money so that the treasurer can then process the application. That's done in the Toastmaster International website, and you just enter the application in there. With you having the banking information, in most cases, you should have a debit card. You can then utilize that debit card to pay the international dues. I highly recommend that you have a debit card because it makes buying supplies from Toastmaster International and paying your international dues so much easier. You issue checks if you need to. It's been funny, I have not had to issue a check for club expenses in quite a while now, because most of the stuff that we end up buying is through Toastmaster International. We may have a club member that goes out and buys some trophies for Toastmaster of the Year or Spark Plug of the Year, may have a reimbursement for that, but writing checks is really far and few between, I think, now with the way we've got things. And then maintaining the financial records. You want to make sure that you're keeping these membership applications, that you are printing off bank statements, and whether you have to print them off paper-wise or you print them to a PDF file, that you have these records going backwards so that you have the history of the club. So if there's ever any problems or questions, we've got the ability to go back. Banks will keep bank statements online for a period of time, but after a few years, they start dropping off. So I encourage you to go in there every month and make sure the bank statement looks right and nothing fraudulent has gone through there or something is wrong, and B, just printing it to a PDF so that you've got the permanent record on that. Presenting a financial report, we talked about that. Submitting a club accounts for audit. And we're not submitting these to an auditor or a CPA to do. Basically what this references, having somebody else look over your work per se. So maybe you find an experienced Toastmaster in your club, maybe you find a past treasurer in your club. You give them the bank statements for the last 6 months, you give them the financial records that you have, you let them just verify that things are in line with each other. Some clubs do that, some don't, but it is a good function to have out there, to have someone else just double checking things. Attending an executive committee meeting, we talked about that a lot in the secretary session. You should be having executive meetings at least, I feel like at least every other month, if not monthly, to help the club stay on track. Reconciling deposits and expenditures on hand, making sure that things are right. Errors can happen in bank statements, and if you can catch those errors quickly and let the bank know, they get fixed quickly. If it's 6 months later, it becomes a lot bigger problem trying to fix something. So I encourage you to stay up on the bank statements on a regular basis. We don't have any tax regulations with our clubs in Nevada, so there's nothing you need to worry about there. Financial correspondence, in most cases, that's going to be from Toastmaster International or the bank, and then prepare for an audit committee. And like I said, an audit committee can be as simple as one person in the club other than yourself, or it could be several people. It's kind of whatever fits your club. All right, we've talked about the budget, we've talked about the financial reports, we've talked about the audit, and then working on the club success plan. And that's one of the critical things that happens in an executive committee meeting. Making sure you're following and gonna hopefully get presidents distinguished on the Distinguished Club program, and then also working through your club success plan as to who's doing what, and it's a very comprehensive program that can really help enhance your club and keep it online. When clubs start a downhill trajectory, it's usually because the club success plan is either A, not being followed, or B, doesn't exist. All right, we've talked about those. So attending club training, we're doing that today. Materials, again, Toastmaster International has a bunch of different information out there, including the officer training manual. The District 115 website has a lot of information and videos and tutorials out there that can help. You want to make sure that you've met with your outgoing treasurer and that you get the records from them, and whether they're electronic or paper or whatnot. And I know it's hard because we're not meeting in person right now, but do your best at getting that information in case the past treasurer happens to move out of town or leave Toastmasters or something like that. And then we've talked about the budget. The bank signature card, again, a key thing, something that you often forget about, but it is important that that stay up to date. All right, I'd like to open it up for any questions, comments, or best practices.
I think we're hearing crickets.
Yes. How many, do we have any brand new treasurers that have never done this role before? Or are we all in multiple terms?
Leslie, what
Yes.
club do you represent?
Well, I'm in Windjammers. I'm the secretary, and the link said that I was to come to Phil for my secretary information.
Yes, we did the secretary information the first 20 minutes of this presentation.
My fault. I didn't have an internet connection. It took me that long to get my internet. It's been sporadic now. I had to miss my Wednesday meeting because of it, and I managed to get on and I thought, oh, he's probably going to finish around 9:30 and then I'll hear the secretary.
I did secretary first. I'm sorry.
It's
Leslie, what's your last name, Leslie?
Yanko, Yanko. I have, though, met with both Dana and Phyllis in person, and they have gone over with me my secretarial duties. So I believe I do understand them. Phyllis in particular gave me an entire list of ordering and correspondence, being the backup at base camp, which I've already done for one of our members who couldn't do it herself. I approved that. So I'm sorry I missed it. I'm glad I got it.
And Leslie, we've recorded this today, so it will be out there, I believe, on the District 115 website. So you will, you can go back and see what I presented this morning at some future point.
It's going to be on the D15 website. Yeah, I'll look for it. I'll give them a couple of days to get it up, and then I'll look for it.
The previous ones should also be put up there soon. I don't think from the June 27th, those sessions have been put to the website yet. We're working on it.
Good. But again, like I've said before, you're never alone in an officer position. Please reach out, whether it's a fellow club member, a prior treasurer, or it may be, you know, your area director. There is a wealth of Toastmaster experience within this community. So please ask the questions. If you're having a problem with something or you're looking, I'm more than willing to, let's see, I can put my contact information out here if I can find a chat box. And I'm more than willing to hear and help you in any way possible. Let's see, can I just close out of the slides and then I get back to my original? Let's see, oops.
I'm stopping your sharing.
Okay, thank you. All right. And I will put my contact information out here in the chat box. But yeah, if there's any additional questions, just let me know. And it is, like I said, an unsung officer position, but it is extremely important. And both the secretary and treasurer positions do account for a couple of points in the Distinguished Club program. They are important aspects to the club and its success. Oops, I did that privately. I meant to do it to everyone. There we go. All right. Any other comments, questions? I know we're done a little bit early, Carol.
You're all right.
We're all right, but I think we hit on a lot of the important items, and I think it's important, especially if you're a new secretary or treasurer, you don't get overwhelmed at the beginning. Handle the more important things, and then everything will start falling into place. So if we have no other comments or questions, do we just go ahead and stay on until 9:50, or do we want to wrap it up?
I figure if people don't have any other questions, we could wrap this up. And that way they could be ready at 10 o'clock to listen to our out of town, our first out of district speaker.
Ooh.
It's going to be fun talking about work-life balance.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to present both of these important officer roles today. And like I said, if you have any comments or questions or things pop up down the road, feel free to reach out to me. And work on getting your signature card updated. Make sure your officer lists are updated. Keep the minutes rolling and your financial reports rolling along. And I'm hoping that we can be back to live meetings here very soon. I know a lot of us are itching to get back and get out of these totally Zoom environments. So.
Well, with nobody else saying anything, thank you all for coming, and we'll hopefully see you on the next link at 10 o'clock. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.